Okay, 3.1. That was just using the normal compound formula, and they said that this was quarterly for 6 years. Okay, so that's supposed to be a 6. Let me actually just fix that. It doesn't really look like a 6. Oh, not better. There you go. Right, we got our first one. They guys, I think for 3.2, that's what they said, how much interest? Right, if you're reading the actual question there, they didn't say what percentage of interest. They told you what percentage of interest, okay? They already told you that the interest is 10.3 over 400. So this is a very common mistake, guys. If they say how much interest, they're literally asking for the amount of interest. I'm not sure what was this. Is this a loan or an investment? Page 249 an investment. Okay, but then they just read the word in there. They're saying, how much interest has she received after 6 years? Now, guys, if she invested 25,000 rand, did she invest more money? She just invested 25,000, right? And after 6 years, look how much money she can get out. The difference there between the 46,000 and the 25,000, that is all interest. Right? So if they're asking for how much interest, you have to take your final amount minus your original amount. Okay, so let's write that in as a formula. So if they're asking for how much interest, then you're going to take final amount, which is your A, right? The A value that we calculated up there, minus your original amount, which is your P value. Okay, that's the difference between the two. Because guys, you didn't add more money during the course of the 6 years. So this investment is 25,000 rand. Was in that account for 6 years. She didn't do anything, and then she can get 46,000 rand back. All right, so that is 21,000 rand more than what she invested. So that more amount is the interest that she got. Okay, that's basically like the bank is paying you money for you to put your money there. And the reason for that is because they actually use that money that you invest, right? It doesn't actually stay there. The bank uses it to give to other people, all right? So they almost like paying you a fee in order to use your money. That makes sense. That's what they mean. Okay, so please guys remember that. If they ask this type of question in the text exam, this would be a knowledge question, right? They're going to expect you to know this. So this would be like some of the marks that are supposed to be the easy parts. Okay, so please try to remember that. Yeah, that was all you had to do for today. Okay, we're going to do a new note. We're going to try and squeeze in 2 topics today. We'll see how it goes. All right, so the first heading is converting interest rates. Thank you. So you can write that book down. We actually move this up. Yes, correct. Yes, sure. Right, converting interest rates, you just need to know that terminology. So just write that first part down. So we're talking about effective interest rate and nominal interest rate. You need to know. If we're talking about effective, if we're talking about nominal, you need to know what they are actually referring to. So that's some more terminology stuff that you need to know. Okay, so guys, you need to be able to recognize those words if they're ever talking about, you'll see now when we're doing examples, how they will use the terminology. But an effective interest rate is always an annual interest rate, right? We remember that annual means yearly, right? So once a year, so if they say you have an effective interest rate of 12%, you're going to write that as 12 over 100. Okay, so they might leave out the word annual, they might just say effective interest rate of 12%. You need to recognize that effective is always annual, so it's just over. Okay, nominal interest rate, they don't really use this word so much in questions, just like normal questions. But if they do, a nominal interest rate is the one that is more often than once a year. Okay, so effective is just once a year. Nominal is the one that we look at on Thursday, so monthly, weekly, quarterly, daily, biannually, whatever. All of those ones that are more frequent than once a year. Okay, so more than once a year. So you would write whatever your rate is over 1200 or 5200 if it's weekly or 400 if it's quarterly, etc. Okay, there are a whole bunch of those. So that is nominal. So effective is over 100, nominal is over whatever type they're giving you here. Monthly, weekly, quarterly. Okay, now we're going to learn a new formula, guys, to convert from a nominal interest rate to an effective interest rate. So I want you to write this formula down, please. And I am going to make some notes around it, so don't write the example down yet. Because, yeah, I don't know how you're going to have to space your stuff out. So you can just write this formula down. Guys, that is I with a subscript of EFS, which is supposed to be short for effective. And then 1 plus I over m to the power of n. Okay, so it's not n like what we used to, it's now m to the 1. Okay, so here the I effective, this is the effective interest rate. That is what this is referring to. So we can make a little note there. Effective rate. Okay, that's what the EFN stands for there at the bottom. So this is what you're going to solve for in the equation. If they're asking you, if they're giving you a nominal interest rate, so like in this example, we have 30% quarterly. They want you to calculate what effective interest rate, what annual interest rate would be the same, would give you the same amount of money than a 13% quarterly. All right, so this is what you're going to solve for. So you can maybe highlight that. It's going to be like an equation, you're going to be solving for that I. All right, so what are we going to have to do with this one in front? You're going to have to move it to the other side and minus it on the other side. Okay, but this is the official formula as it's written in the textbook. Okay, with a 1 on this side. But we are going to have to move that 1 over to that side, minus it from this bracket, and that will give us the effective interest rate. Now guys, this I over m and this m, you've never seen this before, but basically this I over m is just a nominal interest rate. Okay, so it's written in a strange way, but just like the other day when we said 10% quarterly, we wrote it as 10 over 400. That's what you're going to put in this spot. Okay, so it's just a nominal interest rate, just like we practiced writing it on Thursday. But remember, in our normal formula, we have an n. And n is the number of interest calculations, right? So if it was quarterly for 10 years, we said 10 times 4. Now, m is just the number of interest calculations in 1 year. The number of, I'll just INT for interest, number of interest calculations in 1 year. Okay, that M is always in 1 year, right? Even if it's saying in the question, this person is investing money for 12 years, doesn't matter. This M that you use in this formula is the number of calculations in 1 year. So the number of months, or the number of quarters, the number of weeks. Okay, we'll see now in the example. Okay, so this formula also has a formula that you need to know off by heart, please. Okay, even in matric, this formula doesn't appear on the formula sheet. So you will never get given this formula. All right, not even in matric. You have to know. Okay, please write that example down and we'll do that one together. Find the effective interest rate if the nominal rate is 13% per annum compounded quarterly. So when you're done copying that down, we can just highlight effective because that's what they're asking us for, right? They're asking for, we're saying find the effective interest rate. So they're asking for it, so we're going to write this side first. So we're going to say 1 plus I effective is equal to 1 plus I over m to the power of m. As you get a mark for writing just that formula down. Okay, so just for memorizing that formula and writing it down, you already have 1 mark. Remember, we are solving for this interest rate, the effective interest rate. So we're going to fill in, what did they tell us? 13% per annum compounded quarterly. That's the nominal rate. So that is what we're going to fill in on the right-hand side of the equation. Okay, so we're going to say bracket 1 plus, right, so how would we write 13% compounded quarterly? 13 over 400. Hey, how many quarters are there in a year? 4. So we're going to write that as 13 over 400. Okay, so even though they're writing it in a strange way in the formula, I over n, we don't usually write it like that. You still just put your nominal interest rate in this formula. Okay, so maybe if you have a different color highlighter, you can do that. 13% per annum compounded quarterly. That is what you put in that equation in that formula. Now guys, how many quarters are there in 1 year? 4, so that is your n value. Even if they say this is an investment for 12 years, doesn't matter. Okay, in this formula, we always put the number of quarters in this case, because it's quarterly, in 1 year. Okay, so that will always be 4. Now we're going to type that into the calculator. So let's see. We type 1 plus 13 over 400, close bracket to the power of 4. We get that. All right, you can write that down if you want to. So that's 1,136, blah, blah, blah. Like you are not allowed to round off here. This is not the final answer. Okay, so you have to keep this answer in your calculator. What do I do with this 1 on this side? I have to minus. Okay, so I effective. Remember when I now move this 1 over, it's not going to be on the left-hand side anymore. I'm now going to, in my calculator, just press minus 1. I'm going to get 0.1364. But guys, is that an interest rate as it's written there? Can't be answer like that, right? I have to say how many percent that is. So how can I go from that to a percentage? What was I doing? Times by 100. Okay, so times that by 100. You can just do that on the calculator again. And you will get 13 comma. Now how must I round that? I'm rounding to 2 decimals. It's 5. Hey, because there's a 7 in the third decimal. So I have to round that 4 up. So that's 13,65%. I don't really have to write per annum in fact, one. So guys, what this means, right, is if you have an interest rate of 30% compounded quarterly, right, the annual interest rate that will give you the same return, that will give you the same amount of money after however many years, is going to have to be 13,65. Okay, so these two interest rates would give you the same amount of money after however many years you invested. Okay, so that is what that is. So guys, it's just a case of subbing values into the calculator, minusing one, and then times the final. Okay. Any questions on that? All right, of course, then you give it to us the other way around. So when you are converting from an effective interest rate to a nominal interest rate, right? Then all we do is we have the same equation, we just swap the two sides around. Okay, so it's the exact same equation. It's now that if you're asking us to find a nominal interest rate, sorry, not interest rate, a nominal rate, so like monthly, quarterly, daily, whatever, then we need to put the nominal bit in the front on the left. Okay, now guys, this way around is a bit more complicated, right? Because we have an exponent, and all sorts of things. We are going to have to solve for the I part, for the interest rate. So it's going to have more steps. What I want you just to add here is for this I over n, sorry. It's easiest if you write this as R over, for example, what are we talking about here? They're asking for the monthly interest rate. So our interest rate would be something over 1,200, right? Is that clear to everyone? If it's the monthly interest rate. So instead of keeping I over n, I'm actually going to write that as R over 1,200. So that makes the calculations much easier. The 1,200 is coming from that monthly. So they're saying monthly. I'm going to write it as R over 1,200. If they were asking for a quarterly interest rate, I would write that as R over 400. Okay, if they were asking for a semi-annually or bi-annually, which is twice a year, you would write it as R over 200. Okay, so you always look at what kind of interest rate are they asking for monthly. So that interest rate is going to have to be R over 1,200. Okay, so in your next line, once you've written your formula down and you're starting to sub in your values, we're going to replace that with R over 1,200. Okay, it's going to make the rest of the calculation much easier. Now guys, do we notice that they haven't actually used the word effective anywhere in this question? We read through it, they're saying determine the monthly interest rate. So monthly, we need to think, okay, monthly is more often than once a year. So this is the answer for the nominal interest rate. Okay, monthly is nominal. That will yield the same return. So that's saying that is the same basically. That's equivalent as 8% per annum compounded annually. Now, guys, if you see the word annually, that is the effective interest rate that they're giving you. Okay, annually and effective, those two words, they can swap it out. They can use either one of those two words to describe an interest rate. So they've given us the effective interest rate, 8%. They're asking us for the monthly interest rate, right? Which is nominal. Okay, so we're going to write this formula down again. We're going to say 1 plus I over n to the power of n is equal to 1 plus I effective. Okay, 1 half, there you go. Right, 1 already. Now we're going to replace, and that's like in the previous example, I'm just going to go back up quickly, where we were finding the effective interest rate, we only sub values in on the right. Now in this case, unfortunately, we're not going to do that. We are going to have to fill in our I over n and our n on this side. And we're going to have to fill stuff in on that side. Okay, so it is a bit more complicated. 1 plus, like I said earlier, because they're asking for a monthly interest rate, let's rewrite I over n as R over 1200. Okay, so that's something that you're going to have to remember, right? Because it's monthly, it's over 1200. Now, what is n? If it's monthly, how many interest calculations are there in 1 year? 12, right? There are 12 months in the year, so n is 12 here. If they were asking for a quarterly interest rate, that would be a 4. Okay, it depends on the type of interest rate that they're asking you for. So this monthly, we're putting that stuff in. So maybe we should highlight that, guys. They're saying monthly, they're saying monthly interest rate. So that's why we're putting in that over 1200 and that 12. Okay, that's coming from the question. If they've asked for different type of interest rate, we would put other stuff in. Okay. Equal to 1 plus. What is the effective interest rate? The annual interest rate, it is 8%. How am I going to write that? 8 over 100. Right? 8% annually, once a year. That's normal. 8 over 100. So this is coming from 8% annually. That is giving us that 8 over 100. Okay, now this calculation is more complicated, guys, because we're going to solve for R. Okay, it's not like the previous one where you just type in the -1. All right, we're going to have to do more work here. We need to solve for R. So first, you can actually just type this into the calculator and get that to a nicer answer. That's going to give you 1,08, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check. Yes, 1,08. Okay, it's a bit easier to work with that than 1 plus 8 over 100. Now, guys, you can't move this 1 over here because you have a 12 there on the outside of that bracket. Okay, what is the opposite of raising something to the power of 12? Taking the 12th root, right? So if I want to move that 12 over, I'm going to have 1 plus R over 1200 left on this side equal to the 12th root of 1,08. Okay, I'm just going to work that out quickly and see what that is. 12th root of 1,08 is, and now we're getting a whole bunch of decimals, 1,006 ... You're not allowed to round that off, right? You can't now say, oh, that's just 1. Okay, you have to keep that answer in the calculator. Now looking at the left-hand side, remember I want to get R. So what if I get rid of next? The 1 or the 1200? The 1, hey, what does I do with this 1? I'm going to over, I'm going to have to subtract 1. Okay, so I'm going to have R over 1200 is this minus 1. So guys, when you type that into the calculator, I want you to get it right. Okay, because the calculator is going to give you the answer in scientific notation. And often if you get a value like this, you think immediately, oh, I've done something wrong. Okay, not necessarily. We can just, I mean, you can write this down if you want to. So you can write 6,43 times 10 to the negative 3. But that's a lot of writing. What can you also just do here, guys? What is this minus 1? 0,006. Okay, so you don't have to actually write down what's coming out on the calculator. 0,006. We're capable of doing that, right? That's not too bad. Or you can write the scientific notation that's coming up. That's okay. But I think that you've done something wrong. Okay, that's fine. Now what if I did get R on its own? That's 1,200. Times by 1,200, 1,200. Okay, so you have the scientific notation value. You're going to times by 1,200, and then you get your interest. 7,72. Okay, so R is, I'll just write that step down. You don't have to, but maybe just so that you remember. 7,72. Okay. And what is this? Compounded monthly. Right? But you can add if you want to, you don't have to. But maybe just for the purpose of this example, let's do that. So what they're saying is an interest rate of 8% annual is the same as 7.72% monthly. Okay, both of those interest rates, if you invested money in either one of those two, it will give you the same amount. Okay, are there any questions, right? How much time is left? Okay, I do want to start timelines quickly. It's not really time that I do. You actually did this last year. So we're just going to do calculations with the change in interest rates. You guys remember timelines from last year? Do you have to like draw a timeline? You did like lines and then you wrote stuff underneath. Okay, so this is a timeline question, but it's not really. You don't actually even have to draw a timeline for each one. Okay, we'll do the more complicated ones tomorrow. And then we have 3 days for it. We're writing on Monday, hey. Okay, and on Wednesday. So then it's over. Are you guys done with anything? Then I can zoom in a bit on the question. Sorry about all the writing. For tomorrow's ones, I will print them off for you. Okay, guys, if you're done copying this down, I want you, if you have highlighters, just to highlight the two interest rates separately. So we're starting with 11% per annum for the first year, so for 1 year, that is the interest rate. And then for the rest of the time period, we'll talk about that now, we have 12.5% per annum compounded quarterly. Okay, so we're saying 5,500 rand invested for a period of 4 years at a simple interest rate. That's also important. Let's actually also highlight that in green, guys. That's simple interest rate. And we won't actually work with simple interest in a while. Okay, so a simple interest rate of 11% per annum for the first year. And then 12.5% per annum compounded quarterly for the rest of the time period. Now, how long is that rest of the time period going to be, guys? If it's 4 years altogether, we have 11% for the first year, then it's going to be 3 years the next bit. Okay, 12.5% per annum compounded quarterly. The same for the rest of the time period. Let's add in there. That is going to be for 3 years. Okay, they're telling us in the first bit, but also in the question, that we're actually working with 4 years in total here. Okay, so for the first year we have 11%. That means the next interest rate is going to be for the last 3 years. So guys, I know that, I'm assuming, just from my experience, that many of you will want to do this in 2 separate calculations, right? Do a calculation for 11% for the first year, and then do another calculation for the 12.5% for the 3 years. But I really want you to try and get away from that. Okay, when we are doing more complicated questions tomorrow, it actually causes a big mess if you're doing separate calculations for every single thing that's happening. There's also a lot of rounding issues. Okay, because just like what we've done before, you're not allowed to round in your separate calculations. So you're going to have to store all sorts of values in the calculator, work with lots of decimals. It's just a big mess. All right, and usually from marking, when people do that, they are 9.5 out of 10 times there is a mistake somewhere. Okay, so I want us really to try and set this all up in one calculation. And it's actually quite simple, guys. All you're going to do is you are going to use your interest formulas. Now, the fact that it's a simple interest rate does complicate things a little bit. Let's just write here. Let's just remind ourselves of those formulas. Simple interest is A equals P bracket 1 plus I times N, right? So that's the formula that we're going to use for the first bit. And for the compound interest, we use this formula, A equals P bracket 1 plus I to the power of N. And what we're going to do is we're going to combine these two formulas, right? We're going to do the whole calculation in one line. What amount was invested? 5,500. I want you please to write A equals my P value, the amount invested is 5,500 rand. Now we're going to make an interest bracket for the first interest rate that we have, which was 11% simple. So we're going to do 1 plus, for the simple interest, remember we're using this type of bracket, okay? The interest rate is 11%, so we write that as 11 over 100 times how many years, guys? Was it at that interest rate? 1. Let's say for the first year. Okay, so our N value for that one is 1. We close your bracket. Now, just next to it, not in a separate calculation, just next to it, you're going to do your second interest bracket, which is compound interest. So we're going to use this formula now. 1 plus, what is the interest rate? 12.5%. Quarterly, how am I going to write that? 12.5 over 400. Remember, there are 4 quarters in a year, so instead of 100, we say 400. Close brackets. How many years was that for, guys? We say for 3 years, but how many quarters are there in a year? 4. That's it. You're going to type that in, that's going to give you your answer. Okay, so make a note. First interest rate. Second interest rate. You are just multiplying them all together, guys. You're not doing 2 separate calculations and adding them together. Just one long line, you type everything in, you get into an answer. Okay, so I've typed everything in now, and I'm pressing equals, and I'm getting that. 8,831 cents and rand, sorry, and 88 cents. Yes.
Shouldn't you be adding the two when what's not simple instead of trying
No, so the way that this formula works, right? Let's just quickly think, or not this formula, this method. If you did it in 2 separate calculations, right? You would do that calculation first, right? So what people want to do always is they want to first calculate, okay, how much money was in this account after the first year? Okay, so they'll say 5,500, and you do your simple interest calculation, you get an answer. Okay, let me quickly check what that is. 5,500, 1 plus that, you will get an answer of 6,105 rand. Okay, that will be that amount. Then what would you do when you add in the next 3 years worth of interest? Then you're going to say 6,105, which is just this actually, which is just that, and then you're going to use that interest rate. So if you wanted to do it separately, I'll write it out. But I actually don't want you guys to copy this down because I don't want you to use this method. So if you were doing this separately, you would say after 1 year.
Sorry, I was thinking that you separate calculation, like it's the same 5 years.
Yes, yeah. But it's fine. Let me write it out. It's good for everyone to see it. Okay, so that is what you would do to calculate how much money you have after 1 year. Okay, so then you would get 6,105 rand. But now that 6,105 rand for the next 3 years is now growing at another interest rate, the second interest rate, right? So then you would say after 4 years, then you would say A is equal to this amount, 6,105, times your next interest rate. What was that again? 12.5 over 400 to the power of 3 times 4. All right, and then you would type that in, and then you would get the same answer. You guys can check, don't believe me. 8831,88. Right, so that is how you would do it if you wanted to do it separately. But guys, isn't this 6,105 that you're using there? It's the same as that. Right? So instead of doing a calculation to get that value, which if the interest rate gets more complicated, you might have a bunch of things more. So instead of doing a calculation to get that value and then using that value then, you can just do the calculations kind of at once. Okay. So yeah, I don't suggest that you do this because like I said, especially when we're doing the ones tomorrow where you're adding more money and taking money out and the interest rates are changing, it turns into a big mess. Right, rather just do it in one step. So you take your amount that you're investing and you take all your interest brackets. And even if there were 4 different interest rates, you just put all 4 brackets next to each other, multiplying it. Okay, but if you're doing it in one calculation, you're not going to be adding or subtracting anything. If it's just the interest rate that's changed. Okay. There are 15 minutes left. I want you guys just to get some practice in this stuff on your own. So it's again exercise 2. I'll put it on the board now. And page 249. I would like you to do number 1. And 2. And 5. Yes. So 1 and 2, those are questions on converting interest rates, and then number 5 is a question like the one we just did. Okay, write that down quickly, guys. So I can put 1 and 2 on the board for you. You're probably gonna have to do 5 at home. Okay, there we go. You have 1 and 2. Can you guys see that? That is enough. Do that proper.